As we get into our next story, think about this. If a dangerous problem is discovered in our cars or our food or medicine, the government can force the manufacturer to issue a recall. It may surprise you that if a gun has this dangerous, serious defect, there is no federal agency with the power to order a recall. The industry polices itself. Keep that in mind as you watch our next story with CNBC's Scott Cohn, who's been reporting on this for us for months. He has investigated a troubling pattern of complaints involving some of the most popular shotguns and rifles in this country made by Remington. Could some Remington models have a dangerous design flaw that allows them to fire without the trigger being touched? And has the iconic company done enough to respond? Scott Cohn now reports on some of America's most cherished long guns under fire.
Millions of Americans hunt. None of them expect what happened to Justin Yerger.
This is it. This is the area.
He was 19 years old, fresh out of high school, the star kicker on his football team with dreams of playing in college. But all that was about to change. Yerger had returned to his truck after dove hunting alone near his home in Monroe, Louisiana. He says he leaned his shotgun, a Remington Sportsman 12, against the wheel well with the safety on. As he tossed his gear into the back, the gun fell over and went off.
Did you touch the trigger?
No.
Nowhere near the trigger?
Nowhere near the trigger.
So the gun's not supposed to go off when you don't pull the trigger. That's what you always thought, right?
That's what I've always known, especially when the safety's on.
The next thing Yerger remembers was lying flat on his back on the ground. He'd been hit in his left leg and was bleeding badly.
It seemed like every time my heart would beat, it looked like a water sprinkler.
A couple driving by saw Yerger and stopped to help. They rushed him to the emergency room at a nearby hospital.
I was hit in my left leg, probably about 3 inches above my knee.
As hard as the pictures can be to look at, they only begin to describe Justin Yerger's ordeal. He spent 3 months in the hospital. Ultimately, it would take 13 surgeries, 128 units of blood, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills for him to walk again.
Do you believe that you did anything wrong that day?
Not at all. I leaned my gun up, guns on safety, and my life changed forever that day. There's not a doubt in my mind that I did not do anything wrong that day.
Yerger sued and settled with Remington. The terms of the agreement are confidential.
What do people need to know?
They need to know that it can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. I'm proof of it.
So these guns can just go off? Without pulling the trigger, with the safety on, the gun can just go off?
You bet.
Tom Butters is an engineer, a trained marksman, and a recognized authority on firearms. He's been paid as an expert by plaintiffs' lawyers in more than 100 claims involving reported malfunctions of Remington guns. He says Remington is hiding a dangerous secret about one of its firing mechanisms called the Common Fire Control, or the CFC.
How long do you think Remington has known that there might be a problem?
Well, I would say it's been known to Remington ever since that first batch of guns went onto the market.
First introduced in 1948, Remington's CFC is a unique trigger mechanism that is in some 20 million of its guns and at least 20 different models, including the .870 shotgun, which is widely used by law enforcement, the .742 semi-automatic rifle, and the Sportsman 12 that Justin Yerger owned. While the safety, the switch that's supposed to keep a gun from firing accidentally, locks the trigger in place, it doesn't block the internal parts from moving, specifically the hammer, the sear, and the firing pin. Butters says if those parts become disengaged because of debris or even just bumping or dropping the gun, the result can be disastrous.
And what's Remington doing about this?
Virtually nothing that I can tell.
Butters and several other experts say, unlike some other gun makers that have changed their designs in response to similar issues, Remington has held firm.
So there are tens of millions of guns out there that can just go off, and most people don't know about it.
That's right. And Remington does not want them to know about it because it will affect their market position.
And yet there are lives at stake.
Yes.
So you're saying that They're putting essentially profits over human lives.
Yes, that's what they've done.
That's a really serious allegation.
Well, it is, and I've made that allegation under oath on a number of occasions.
Remington declined our request for an on-camera interview, and rather than addressing any alleged design defects, the company instead took issue with us in a written statement. The only defect rests with NBC's inaccurate and biased reporting. The fact remains that these guns are owned and used by tens of millions of hunters, competition shooters, law enforcement officers, and military personnel. These field, home, and battlefield experienced users stand as a sophisticated and time-tested testament to the quality and reliability of these iconic firearms. In numerous court cases, Remington has consistently maintained its guns are safe and that every incident can be attributed to user modification, poor maintenance, or careless handling. And the company has challenged the credibility of Tom Butters, suggesting he's an expert for hire who's testified against a number of gun companies. But Remington declined to offer us any experts of its own to counter his claim that the design is unsafe.
And all of this can happen with the safety on.
Absolutely, every bit.
Russell Cheney says that's exactly what happened to him in Oklahoma in 1984 while he was out on a boat duck hunting with friends.
I had my gun sitting up on a bench, kind of a seat, and I was holding it like this, and it slipped off. This hand slipped over the barrel. When it hit the bottom of the boat, it discharged, and then it just blew those two fingers off.
Cheney, a retired police officer, has been around guns his whole life and says he'd never seen anything like it. Wondering how his gun could go off with the safety on, he sent it to an independent lab for testing.
What did you hear back from them exactly?
That they duplicated the discharge just like it happened, just like we did.
In its report, the Oklahoma Forensic Lab said it took the gun with the safety off and no pressure on the trigger and dropped it, but first. The weapon discharged. The test was then repeated with the safety on. The weapon discharged again. In both tests, it was noted the hammer had disengaged from the sear and had struck the firing pin, a condition which should only exist when the trigger is pulled. So Cheney decided to write a letter to Remington.
I was involved in a hunting accident because my gun goes off on safety when bumped on the butt. Would Remington be interested in this gun for research?
What was it that you wanted to accomplish with this letter?
I didn't want this to happen to somebody else.
Remington agreed to look at the gun, but sent it back with this letter. The fire control as received showed no defective parts which could have caused the incident, although the trigger was loose, and the firearm was repeatedly bounced on the butt from as high as 30 inches without any discharge.
So what do you make of that?
I don't believe what they wrote to me and saying that it wouldn't go off.
So are they lying to you?
Well, I believe they probably were.
Cheney decided not to sue Remington.
You alerted them 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sit with you?
It's kind of sad that these people were injured or killed after I know that they knew about the problem.
Determining just how many others complained, though, isn't easy. While a source close to the company insists Remington keeps records of every complaint, court testimony shows the company began destroying at least some records in the 1980s. But before that change, Remington had compiled a list of 119 complaints over a 10-year period. Records or not, the problems continued. Our 5-month investigation has uncovered 125 incidents, including 75 injuries and 7 deaths, all linked to alleged malfunctions of the common fire control since 1973. In Alaska, Paul Flynn was left quadriplegic when his Remington went off, and 15-year-old Philip Kensinger was shot in the face. But many gun enthusiasts swear by their Remingtons. Jack Birch runs an Olympic training center outside Kerrville, Texas. He says Remington should alert the public if there's a problem, but over the past 11 years, he says he's never seen any evidence the Remingtons are flawed.
We see thousands of them come through here, kids shooting them, everybody. Just not an issue.
We hear about customer complaints. Why do you suppose that people don't know about it?
I'm suspecting because it's not as common as people would like to think it is. It's just not a pervasive problem that we see, not only in this range, but I talk to ranges all over the state.
Remington does include all kinds of warnings with every gun it sells, including what the company calls the 10 Commandments of firearm safety. By the book, Russell Cheney and Justin Yerger violated at least 2, always keep the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, and don't rely on your gun's safety. Still, critics say that only proves that even the most experienced shooter isn't perfect, and the design of the CFC should take that into account. Yet we found Remington has turned down a number of patented design changes offered from inside and outside the company, including one from Tom Butters and a colleague aimed at keeping the guns from going off unless the trigger is pulled.
Now, people are going to see this and say, aha, now I know Butters' angle. He's pushing his own design.
Well, if I were all that interested in pushing the design, I would have protected it.
Instead, Butters let the patent expire, which he says counters Remington's allegation that he's just out to make a buck. For decades, the company has continued to deny the theory that debris can compromise the fire control, with one of Remington's paid consultants calling it a mythical allegation. The company insists Remington engineers have never been able to duplicate the alleged problem. But in 1957, when a gun shop owner in Michigan wrote to complain about a customer's gun going off with the safety on, he mentioned, "Gunsmiths around here have told us this is a rather common occurrence and that the guns are unsafe." Remington responded the incident was most unusual. A year later, in this 1958 internal memo, Remington engineers identified the problem that might be aggravated by dirt or foreign matter in the fire control. And in 1985, when an insurance adjuster asked whether there were any problems with the Model 1100 shotgun, Remington responded that it had no problem, even though we found at the time of that letter, Remington had already faced a dozen lawsuits involving that model alone.
As a professional engineer, my first canon of ethics reads, I will hold the public safety paramount in each professional act. I don't believe they did that.
Let's take a break here. When we come back, could an innocent man be in jail convicted of killing his wife because of a flaw in his Remington rifle?